Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. In and around Fort Wayne, Indiana, one of the most severe late winter floods of the century is threatening to get worse. 2 of the 3 rivers that converge in Fort Wayne have begun to drop a little, and the third is holding steady. But there's a forecast for rain tomorrow. Meredith Vieira reports that the question on everyone's mind is, will the dikes hold?
Residents of Fort Wayne, Indiana are in a race with the rivers. The water is still rising, and now the dikes are threatening to go.
Got a lot of bags here. We can do it.
An estimated 3,000 volunteers worked nonstop today trying to plug up the leaks. But there was always another sandbag to lay down, another truckload of dirt to deposit. With 8 miles of dikes to reinforce, city officials say the best we can hope for is that we can keep up with the rivers.
The worst is that one of the dikes gives way, or that there's a major breach in the sandbag efforts, at which point one of these areas would fill up with water like a bathtub.
This number will give you the information you need as far as where to go and so on.
City firemen are evacuating sections of town that were hardest hit during the big flood of 1913. Some people leave willingly, but the city is shutting off gas and electricity as an added incentive to go. Esther Bohr left her home today, the same way she did back in 1913.
Oh, you feel kind of bad about it, sure. You shed a few tears, but they dry up.
Bohr is one of more than 4,000 people who've been evacuated from their homes since the flooding began last Saturday. The water is coming from 3 rivers, the St. Mary's, the St. Joseph's, and the river they empty into, the Maumee. Most of the destruction forms a bulging path along both sides of the riverbanks, and it's growing. Other parts of the flood-ravaged Midwest are beginning to dry up, but in Monroe County, Michigan, health officials now fear well contamination. After an aerial inspection today, they asked residents to take water samples for testing. And last night in Chillicothe, Ohio, hail the size of golf balls shattered windows and dented cars all over town. Federal officials are in Fort Wayne now assessing the damage there. Washington has agreed to pay part of the bill, but right now Fort Wayne's #1 concern is just getting through another night. Meredith Vieira, CBS News, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Great job, Kathy Lee.
Oh, thanks, Tom. I'm Kathy Lee Crosby, and there's nothing more exciting for me than working in front of a live audience. Whether I'm on stage or working in front of the camera. As a performer, I've learned that one of the most important things going for me is my smile. That's why my toothpaste is Pepsodent. It gets my teeth their whitest and it's low in abrasion. So if you want your teeth their whitest, get Pepsodent. Believe me, Pepsodent makes things happen.
We are going to be late for the show.
There's plenty of time.
He's just jittery. Doctor says too much caffeine.
Well, try some Sanka brandy, caffeinated coffee.
I only like real coffee.
Sanka's 100% real coffee. Try it.
That is good.
Well, got the tickets?
50-yard line.
Great, let's go.
Hey, we got time for a cup of Sanka and maybe one for the road.
Sanka decaffeinated coffee. Enjoy it wherever you go.
In an interview published today, President Reagan criticized television network news coverage of his economic policies. As the president put it, and I quote, "You can't turn on the evening news without seeing that they're going to interview someone else who has lost his job, or they're outside the factory that has laid off workers, and so forth." Leslie Stahl has more on this.
President Reagan has launched a harsh attack on the network news broadcast, charging them with a lack of responsibility and with downbeat reporting on the economy. Mr. Reagan claims that kind of negative reporting can contribute psychologically to slowing down the economic recovery.
In an interview in the Daily Oklahoman published today, the president said, "I wonder sometimes if it isn't the battle of the ratings, the Nielsen ratings, and if they aren't more concerned with entertainment than they are with delivering news. Is it news that some fellow out in South..."
Well, obviously having some difficulty there. The Reagan administration today asked Congress to provide an estimated $11.2 million for a new network of radio stations beamed at Central America. This network is said to be needed to counter Soviet and Cuban influence in the region. The FBI said today that it apparently has foiled an exile group's attempt to invade and overthrow the government of Haiti. As Charles Krause reports from Miami, the arrest of these alleged would-be invaders raises questions about U.S. foreign policy.
It could have been the plot for a Woody Allen movie. A ragtag invasion force consisting of 16 men, an odd assortment of pistols, rifles, and shotguns, sets out from the Florida Keys to topple a regime somewhere in the Caribbean. But as the Coast Guard cutter Cape Current returned to Miami today with 2 fishing boats in tow, the U.S. government was taking seriously the latest attempt to overthrow Haiti's longtime dictator, Claude Baby Doc Duvalier. The would-be invaders were intercepted late yesterday in international waters off Florida. The FBI said they'll almost certainly be charged with breaking the Neutrality Act, which prohibits all civilians from using U.S. territory to launch invasions of other countries. But it seems the standard is not being applied equally. In recent years, Florida's become a staging ground for various exile groups. The Nicaraguans, for example, and the Cubans have a joint training camp in the Everglades near Miami. Not long ago, one anti-Castro commander fired his gun in the wrong direction, wounding one of his own men. Despite these problems, the Cuban and Nicaraguan exiles openly court publicity, and so far, the administration has not moved against them. But last January, Bernard Sansaric and other Haitian exiles who tried to overthrow Haiti's pro-American dictatorship were charged with violating the Neutrality Act after their invasion attempt was thwarted. Sansaric's lawyer argues the administration has a double standard.
The fact of the matter is that there have been no prosecutions of persons who have planned and trained, as a matter of fact, for invasions of left-wing countries. And if Baby Doc Duvalier were a left-wing despot and dictator instead of a right-wing despot and dictator, there probably would be no prosecution of Bernard Sansaric.
A spokesman for the Justice Department says there is no double standard, that enforcement of the law has nothing to do with U.S. foreign policy.
Where we catch people who actually go to a foreign shore from our country, where we catch them, we will certainly prosecute.
No matter what nationality?
No matter what nationality.
The administration's position will be tested when Sansaric and probably these men go on trial. The courts will be asked to decide whether the Neutrality Act is being fairly enforced, allowing Nicaraguan commandos to train openly here, while these opponents of Haiti's regime face prosecution and possible imprisonment. Charles Krause, CBS News, Miami.
2 prominent Illinois Republican congressmen have lost their seats. Returns from yesterday's primaries show that largely because of redistricting, Tom Railsback and Edward Derwinski will not return to the House. Scientists have long said that carbon monoxide is a byproduct of smoking that can aggravate heart disease symptoms. And today, the Department of Health and Human Services reports that almost 80% of smokers have blood carbon monoxide levels potentially hazardous to their health. By contrast, the report says fewer than 5% of non-smokers show such levels.
A little Old Spice has a lot of rewards. Old Spice is the clean, fresh, masculine scent so many women love. So even if you love only one woman, you'll love Old Spice, the man's scent so many women love.
Now's the time to clean up, America. Get great bargains on almost all Hoover vacuum cleaners during the big National Hoover Week sale. Terrific savings on this all-time favorite Hoover upright. On our best cleaning Celebrity Powerhead canister. On our most advanced cleaner, the Concept One with Power Drive. They're all sale priced. So see your participating Hoover dealer now and get the cleaner you want at a price you can't beat. But don't wait. The National Hoover Week sale is ending soon.
Well, you have to know, if we had to have technical trouble tonight, we didn't want it to be in that story that Leslie Stahl had about President Reagan's remarks concerning the media. But let's see if our technical difficulties have been overcome, and we can get Leslie Stahl's report now.
President Reagan has launched a harsh attack on the network news broadcast, charging them with a lack of responsibility and with downbeat reporting on the economy. Mr. Reagan claims that kind of negative reporting can contribute psychologically to slowing down the economic recovery.
In an interview in the Daily Oklahoman published today, The president said, I wonder sometimes if it isn't the battle of the ratings, the Nielsen ratings, and if they aren't more concerned with entertainment than they are with delivering news. Is it news that some fellow out in South Succotash someplace has just been laid off, that he should be interviewed nationwide, or someone's complaint that the budget cuts are going to hurt their present program? The president was asked if there's a danger that his image as a compassionate man could be eroded, and he replied, I think there's not only a possibility, I think they've done a pretty good job of it. I'm Scrooge to a lot of people, and if they only knew it, I'm the softest touch they've had for a long time. White House officials have admitted that they're worried about a deepening perception in the country that the president's economic program is unfair and that Mr. Reagan lacks compassion. But the president's attacks on the networks is not confined to economic reporting. In an interview in TV Guide, he complained that there has been a kind of editorial slant in TV's El Salvador coverage.
The presidents of CBS, NBC, and ABC News all had no comment. In 1970, Vice President Agnew lashed out at the networks, calling them nattering nabobs of negativism. So this is not the first White House to go after the media once the president's political honeymoon is over. In fact, it's become almost a ritual. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
Pan American World Airways and Braniff International today announced that Pan Am will take over almost all of Braniff's South American routes for the next 4 years. This move still needs approval by the Civil Aeronautics Board and the foreign governments involved. But the announcement by the two financially troubled carriers comes as the airline industry is finding a government-ordered lifeline maybe more like a noose. Linda Douglas explains.
When times are tough, Americans cut back on travel. For the major airlines, these are the toughest times ever. Pan American lost $400 million last year. Braniff $160 million, United $104 million, on down the line. And experts fear the worst.
The economy continues to be weak, and the second half shows no improvement this year. Some of those carriers, I think, will go bankrupt.
A lot of businesses go bankrupt in a recession, but in the case of the airlines, economists point to something else: deregulation. 3 years ago, the government stopped setting airfares and establishing routes. For the first time, the airlines were allowed to compete freely. Small regional carriers grew and prospered, and all the competition made ticket prices drop. Fare wars erupted. The airlines began losing money, which may be their own faults, according to some economists.
They've been so protected for 40 years that they haven't known really how to behave intelligently when they're out, and they're cutting one another's throats.
Small airlines accuse their big competitors of trying to drive them out of business, prompting some new cries for government regulation. Ironically, World Airways, a cut-rate airline whose existence was made possible by deregulation, is now asking for some modified price controls. And others argue the crazy quilt of airline fares and routes favors some travelers but penalizes others. For instance, the price of a one-way coach ticket from Los Angeles to New York is now around $150. The price to Pittsburgh, almost as far, is twice that, and there are fewer flights.
It's not only that there are fewer services, but they are in smaller, less comfortable aircraft, and the whole picture has deteriorated over recent years.
But many airlines, like financially troubled Western, cling to the right to compete, even if it means their demise.
Well, I think that if an airline cannot compete effectively in a free marketplace, then there's no reason it should be in business. And that goes for Western Airlines.
Deregulation or not, most experts agree the recession may lead to the death of several major airlines. Western, Continental, and Braniff threaten most. Said one analyst, when the economy catches cold, the airlines come down with pneumonia. This time, it could be fatal. Linda Douglas, CBS News, Los Angeles.
An independent task force today charged that factors which led to last summer's strike by air traffic controllers are resurfacing. This report says the Federal Aviation Administration has made little effort to change its approach and, quote, morale of most employees at almost all levels in the FAA is poor, end of quotation. The task force was asked to examine management practices and to recommend changes. It found, quote, high-handed and authoritarian behavior among some supervisors. The report also noted complaints about management by controllers who struck and those who continued working and said they are almost identical. The report also found 1 in 20 controllers suffer from burnout, with that number rising to almost 7 in 10 among those who worked an average of 19 years. Some Senate Republicans are now backing a move to cut their own salaries. Correspondent Phil Jones has learned that Jesse Helms will introduce legislation for a 5% pay cut for all members of the House and Senate and for top-level officials of the Reagan administration. Jones quotes Helms as saying, leaving the impression that we are throwing 20 widows out on the snow every day, Congress will simply have to demonstrate that it is going to take its own lumps. The Federal Reserve Board today reported that factory use increased 1.2% last month as manufacturers operated at 71.8% of capacity. However, the report noted that was still the second lowest rate in 6 years. Strongly Republican Wall Street is not so strongly supportive of President Reagan these days. That's the verdict in a poll of 450 financial executives taken by Richard Worthman, the president's own pollster. This poll shows that while 67% of those executives approved of the way the president was handling the economy a year ago, only 41% feel that way now. 86% of those polled on Wall Street believe the Reagan program will eventually help the economy, but Arthur Levitt, Jr., chairman of the American Stock Exchange, urged Mr. Reagan to, quote, compromise with Congress.
At Ford Motor Company, quality is job one.
Job one is to make the very best car we can.
When we talk about quality, you know, we have to back it up.
And this dedication is already paying off. Overall, a 48% improvement in quality since 1980, as reported by new car owners.
Better and better, see what we've done. At Ford, quality is job one.
Hey, Bud, you look terrible. Could be the flu. You need the specialist.
The specialist?
The Specialist. Kaopectate. Strong relief for just one problem, diarrhea.
I feel awful, Mom. Could be the flu. I need the specialist.
Kaopectate's the only leading non-prescription medicine created just for diarrhea. It's so effective, it relieves diarrhea within 24 hours.
Taxi!
Kaopectate, the diarrhea specialist.
Poland's martial law crackdown on the Solidarity Union apparently has not crushed the labor reform group. Polish sources told the Associated Press today that an underground movement of hundreds of Solidarity members has taken hold in the Baltic port of Gdansk, where the union was formed. The union's leader, Lech Wałęsa, remains under house arrest in a suburban Warsaw villa. Efforts to free Wałęsa for this weekend, a special time for him, appear unsuccessful, as Doug Tennell reports from Warsaw.
Lech Wałęsa's parish priest said there is only a faint hope the Solidarity leader will be freed to attend his daughter's christening. But Monsignor Henryk Jankowski said the christening of Maria Victoria Wałęsa will be held in Gdansk this Sunday, even if her father is unable to attend it. Jankowski, who was scheduled to visit Wałęsa in detention today, said he had no good news for the Solidarity leader. At the family home in Gdansk, Maria Victoria and her mother Danuta Wałęsa are still waiting. The daughter, Lech Wałęsa, has never seen, was born in January, while her father was an internee under martial law. Shortly before these photographs were taken, Danuta formally petitioned General Wojciech Jaruzelski to free her husband, but there has been no reply from the authorities. The regime appears to have stepped up its strategy to divide and conquer the Solidarity loyalists, and at the same time it is publicizing Poland's fraternal ties with the Soviet Union. The state-controlled media directed broadsides at a number of Solidarity leaders in the last 24 hours, and in one cast Wałęsa as the target of a plot by anti-communist extremists within Solidarity. Polish television accused the extremists of trying to trap Wałęsa into staging a general strike in Poland and taking power. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Warsaw.
Polish television today also showed military maneuvers in the country's northwest. Involved are troops from Poland, East Germany, and the Soviet Union. The exercise is believed designed to dampen any thoughts of opposition to the martial law regime. The Soviet Union and its satellite countries last year ran up a record debt to Western nations of $80,400 million, a fourth of that amount incurred by Moscow itself. As David Andelman reports now, there will be another record set this year, and it's cause for concern in the Kremlin.
If you think the U.S. economy with its projected $90 billion budget deficit is cause for concern, you haven't seen the red ink the Kremlin's been writing with. This year, the combined hard cash debt of Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union will exceed $100 billion, and for several reasons, Moscow's bills are piling higher each day. First, the Soviets simply have too many dependents they can't afford. According to one congressional study, Soviet aid to the Eastern Bloc, Cuba, and Vietnam exceeded $6 billion last year, and that doesn't include the cost to the Soviets of financing the war in Afghanistan. As a result, Soviet cash deposits in Western banks dropped from $8.5 billion in December of 1980 to $3.5 billion in June of last year. Second, if Western banks declare Poland in default, the Soviets must either pick up Poland's $27 billion debt or risk a credit cutoff for itself and Eastern Europe. Third, the Soviets need more hard cash than ever this year to buy grain and technology in the West. So the Soviets have become desperate for hard cash, so desperate they are dumping unprecedented quantities of gold, diamonds, oil, furs, cars, and counterfeit Swiss watch parts on already depressed markets, sending prices plunging to new lows.
They can only do what they are no doubt striving to do, trying to increase their exports to the West of whatever can be made available, whether it's oil, timber, or gas, or whatever. They will try and push out more at the cost, perhaps, of leaving their own needs rather tight.
Oil accounts for some 73% of all Soviet exports, and it's distributed through a network of dealers and Russian-owned service stations throughout Western Europe. The system worked well until the oil glut hit. Now Moscow is forcing more oil on the market than traders can handle. There's a glut on the diamond market as well, and the Soviets are making it worse, pumping millions of dollars worth of stones to cutters in Tel Aviv, many of whom are Soviet emigres, and forcing De Beers, the huge diamond cartel, to buy up the supply just to keep prices stable. And the Soviets are pressing nearly 50% more timber this year than last onto Western markets, undercutting sharply the prices charged by Sweden and Finland. Most of Moscow's money problems can be traced finally to grain, a chronic shortage that'll cost Moscow at least $6 billion this year for imports.
There is absolutely no doubt that the Soviets, in making plans ahead for their balance of payments, did not foresee 3 bad harvests in a row, did not foresee the necessity of an enormous increase in grain imports.
But the Soviets' problems may be only just beginning. There's one report they've asked Japan for a 6-month delay in payment of a $150 million bill for textiles. And sources in Moscow are quoted as saying that may be only the first of several such pleas to skip payments. David Andelman, CBS News, Paris.
Israel next month turns over to Egypt the last part of the Sinai Peninsula that was captured in the 1967 Mideast War. Today, the first contingent of American troops that will help keep the peace in the Sinai arrived at Sharm el-Sheikh. The 670 members of the 82nd Airborne Division will be part of an 11-nation force. When that force is complete, it will number about 2,600 men, 1,200 of them Americans. Weather is affecting plans for Monday's third launch of the Space Shuttle Columbia. Rain has made the Mojave Desert lakebed at Edwards Air Force Base unusable for the primary landing site in its present condition. Nevertheless, space agency officials say the launch countdown will begin tomorrow as scheduled. Should the Columbia have to abort on her first orbit, an alternate landing site will be used.
Digel tops planet acids. We proved it in recent laboratory tests. Cutting the yellow top off a Digel tablet illustrates the results. Without its top layer, Digel consumes as much heartburn-producing acid as plain acids like Rolaids. What's more, Digel has the yellow top and gives you the fast gas-calming action of simethicone. Conclusion: when you want more than plain relief, Digel tops plain acids.
Welcome to the age of the full-service copier. Mita has a full line of advanced technology plain paper copiers, and with a powerful service network of over 500 dealers nationwide. Mita has more than Xerox, more than Savin, more than IBM. Mita The full-service copiers.
Call toll-free 800-526-7843, extension 885.
President Reagan had a sprig of shamrock in his lapel when he entertained Irish Prime Minister Charles Haughey at lunch at the White House today. There were several hundred guests, and it was billed as a social occasion. But the Irish ambassador seized the opportunity to make a bid for British withdrawal from Northern Ireland. On this St. Patrick's Day, Bill Moyers has some sobering thoughts in his commentary. Bill?
This is not about war in El Salvador, deficits in Washington, or missiles in Europe. This is about John Belushi, the St. Patrick's Day parade, and black crepe on 9 homes. Belushi was the comedian whose wacky wit could tickle the funny bone of my 3 children, just as John Lennon could engage their hearts. When Belushi died the other day, one of my associates said simply, Hollywood burnout. But we know now that he died not of too much success, but of too much wine and too many drugs. They're hardly a Hollywood monopoly. All around me as I came to work this morning were young people en route to watch the St. Patrick's Day parade. They were carrying raincoats and six-packs and the paraphernalia of drugs. Drinking has become so integral a part of this festive affair that the city had to assign an extra 1,000 police to deal with rowdies who've been turning the occasion into intramural brawls. All morning on the train and subway, the trains and subways I ride, police were stopping youngsters coming from the suburbs and confiscating their alcohol. But many got through anyway. Said one older patron of a bar to a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, it's just like any other day, only we get a little drunker. But for the young, this is so premature a flirtation with ruin. Where I live, 9 young people died early one morning this week when coming home from a party they skirted the blinking barrier of a railroad crossing and drove into the path of an onrushing train. The medical examiner's preliminary findings showed they had been drinking. Not much, apparently, but enough to have impaired common sense. You do not need to be an old fogey to wish that the bias of our society was not toward alcohol and other drugs as the fashionable, smart, and sophisticated thing to do, or to wish that we did not hide its meanness with funny commercials, glowing pictures, and fancy lies. You only need to have laughed with John Belushi, or really to have enjoyed a St. Patrick's parade, or to have known just one of those kids. Dan?
Thank you, Bill. And that's the CBS Evening News for this Wednesday. Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Has this ever happened to you? Your car stalls out. The solution could be as simple as this. Carefully dry off the ignition wires from top to bottom and dry off the distributor cap, the inside too if possible. Learn more ways to get yourself out of trouble in the on-the-spot repair book, free from participating Shell dealers. Come to Shell for answers.
United Airlines gives you the most to Hawaii. The most flights to luau's, to muumuu's, to magic. The most wide-body flights to surfing, to temples, to twilight. And only United treats you in Royal Hawaiian style on your way to the Land of Kings. Come see Hawaii through the eyes of the people who know her best.
In our little corner of the world,
The people of United.
fly the friendly skies.
Now it's a whole new morning. All the news and fascinating features you need to start your day. Wake up to the new CBS Morning News.
This is CBS.
Some polluted water in Sumner County, and the source may be the county's landfill. We'll have the story next on Eyewitness News.
Springtime means cleanup time around the house, and Dollar General can save you plenty on those spring cleanup items. Like a can of exterior paint, it's only $5.50 a gallon. Interior paint is only $5 a gallon. A can of spray paint will cost you just $1, and a complete paint and roller set, just $1. We can't help you do the cleaning, but Dollar General stores can sure help you save big on the items you need, because
Every day is Dollar Day at the Dollar